Thank you so much. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and to begin our conversation on the new NIMC General Multipurpose Card, here's a background report put together by our correspondent Timothy Yusuf.
The new National Identity Management Commission NIMC General Multipurpose Card is an upgraded version of the National Identity Card issued by the National Identity Management Commission in Nigeria. It comes with key features like an enhanced security, whereby the new card has advanced security features, including biometric data and a unique identification number. Other features include multi-purpose advantage of the card, which can be used for various purposes, such as identity verification or proof of identity for individuals. Means of payment purposes, as it can be used for financial transactions, such as ATM withdrawals and online payments. Others are travel purposes, whereby the card can be used as a travel document for international travel. The card has improved durability, designed to be more durable and resistant to wear and tear, compliance with international standards, and with numerous benefits, which among others comprise convenience. It means that the multipurpose card eliminates the need to carry multiple cards for different purposes, enhance security, as its advanced security features protect against identity theft and unauthorized transactions. Another benefit of the card is increased efficiency, as the card can be used for various transactions, reducing the need for manual verification and documentation. Global recognition is another benefit, since the card's compliance with international standards ensures recognition and acceptance worldwide. For specific details and requirements for obtaining the new NIMC General Multipurpose Card and many more, come along with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Many thanks, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. Now time to get into the conversation, and we have our guests already seated, and it's a pleasure to introduce with us Dr. Alvin Ikoku, the Head Strategy and Program Office, NIMC. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, also here is Omanise Obaje Adofu, Assistant Director, Card Management Services, NIMC.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And from Lagos, we introduced Bolale Anibokon, Head Enterprise Support Services, Nigeria Interbank Settlement System. Thank you so much for joining us. So joining us from Lagos is Mr. Ugo Obasi, Chief Operating Officer, Afrigo Pay Financial Service Limited. It's a pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria this morning. Let's begin this conversation now with Dr. Alvan Ikoku, his Head Strategy and Program Office, NIMC. We know that the introduction of this multipurpose card, as it's been, told to Nigerians, the reasons why it's been, introduced to Nigerians as a means of, gathering data about Nigerians, putting it in one place. I was reading up yesterday, and I'm beginning to understand that it's a significant shift and advancement, in efforts to establish a national identity database for Nigerians. Tell us the features of this multipurpose card and what do you intend to achieve with it?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me begin this way, that the National Identity Management Commission has several mandates outlined for it, and it's in the Act establishing the commission. And the issuance of the General Multipurpose Card is one of such mandates. The commission has struggled with that, over the years since it was set up. Owing to paucity of funding, etc. And of course, we aimed very high, so it was more like a killer card, more or less, okay? And it didn't seem sustainable at the time. So
Why do you call it a killer card?
Killer in the sense that it was well celebrated, maybe. You know, well celebrated card. It was an award-winning card internationally, and had features that simply were above the ordinary. Okay, at the time it was a 7-layer polycarbonate card, you know, and so on and so forth, all kinds of features, but certainly wasn't sustainable. And because of that, it suffered a huge setback. Now, fast forward to about 17 months ago when our amiable Director General Chief Executive came on board. She outlined 5 policy initiatives, okay, that she would love to focus on. And again, the issuance of the General Multipurpose Card, resuscitation and issuance of General Multipurpose Card was featured among the 5-point agenda of the Director General Chief Executive, including, of course, the use of a variation of it for government-to-people payment. Now, this is more like meeting the reality of the day halfway, if not more than halfway. Why do I say so? The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, also rolled out an 8-point initiative for the government. And if you look at it very critically, identity is at the crux of it. If we do not properly identify citizens and legal residents, it would also put some of those agenda in jeopardy. So we really had to step up our game to do the needful, and that is what has now bettered the General Multipurpose Card. We are resuscitating it with its G2P flavor, and so that's it. So the G2P flavor has, of course, come on stream, and we are beginning with an agency that has readied itself for that purpose. And this is an agency that has great underpinning with ensuring that farmers get their input, farmers get whatever support they possibly can get. And you know, this speaks a great deal also to Mr. President's 8-point initiative. So we are partnering with the Ministry of Agriculture on that, and what will be issued is the G2P card, which of course would be issued to farmers in that sector who have been who have come on stream, okay, and look ready to benefit from government initiatives. So,
what does the G2P card mean?
Government to people.
Okay.
Is it different from the General Multipurpose Card? Is it, because I'm trying to understand all that you're saying. Are there different categories, you know, in this General Multipurpose Card you're talking about? And then tell us, is it different? What's the difference, you know, in this new card with what we used to have? I remember the first time I registered for, you know, the national identity, whatever, there was this card given to me. It had a chip and all of that. What's the difference, you know, between this and what we used to have?
Okay. So the General Multipurpose Card is would also have a chip, okay? But the target for the General Multipurpose Card will be what I may call the, if I said this, don't misunderstand me. It would look like it's an elitist thing. No, anyone, every Nigerian can actually have the General Multipurpose Card. But we know from intense observation, from feasibilities, that those who would end up coming for the General Multipurpose Card may perhaps be the middle class and the top echelon of the society for purely identification purposes. However, the target of today will be to bridge whatever gap exists in reaching individuals who are in need of government support and intervention, okay? And they are larger in number by our feasibility, okay? The farmer, the peasant on the street, most of them unbanked, okay? So they are the ones we hope will take advantage of the G2P flavor of the card.
So there are two kinds of cards?
Yes, they are. And the G2P would have, the general multipurpose card will have multiple wallets.
How do you want to differentiate Nigerians? Because, you know, I'm trying to understand.
Yes.
How, you know, it's another band A, band B kind of thing now. In my
band
head,
Z.
I'm thinking. So band A would be general multipurpose, therefore band B, your G2P. How do you want to differentiate those who should get the G2P and those who should be getting the general multipurpose card?
Well, we dived straight into the discussion of card. And perhaps I thought you were well informed about NIMC's mandate holistically.
You're informing Nigerians, not just us.
Yeah. NIMC's mandate holistically includes identifying the individuals. And what identifies the individual is the national identification number. So they are brought into the national identity database when they enroll for their NIN. So you keep hearing NIN, and that's really what it's about. So everyone who has a NIN is uniquely identified with their biometrics, okay? So going forward, part of NIMC's mandate will also be not just to issue the NIN slip, which, by the way, we would no longer be issuing NIN slips. We would rather send it electronically. But Nigerians will now have the opportunity of getting a card. If you prefer to get a G2P card for the immediate benefit of harnessing or receiving government incentives, then excellent. You're good to go on the G2P. And the general multipurpose, once you get that, that's also fine. That will be used for identification purposes. But in the G2P, further to that, it is identity. It is identity still seated on the same card with payment. Okay? So it makes life easier for everyone, for the citizen or the holder of the card, and also for the government.
You know, my next question would have been, who doesn't need government incentives? But I think I'll pause
you. Every Nigerian needs it, actually.
Every Nigerian may need it, but would every Nigerian step up for it? It all depends.
Well, if a multi-purpose, identity card is a must for every Nigerian if you want to access so many things like banking, like hospitals, like renewing your passport, you need it because you can't do anything now without your NIN. So I want you to explain to me, I'm coming to Mrs. Omane, Madam Omanese here into this conversation. I want you to explain to me, we got this idea from other countries that have done it.
Yes.
Abi? Got it from other countries. Like I was watching a movie yesterday and I saw that the Aadhaar in India that is being used in India as the multi-purpose card, somebody used it to trace somebody's home when that person had an accident. They got the card and they were able to take the person home. We don't have an address system in Nigeria that works functionally, except from maybe Abuja or not even all of Lagos. So how functional is this card going to be in Nigeria? You have your banks in it, on it, you have your hospital card, you have your passport, you have everything. Everything is there, all your information is there. So how will it function here in Nigeria? How will the acceptability be? How is, there are so many things that entails this multi-purpose card, because if you look at maybe Denmark and other countries that have used it and they are doing well with it. Somebody on an interview yesterday I was watching while I was reading up said, is it going to be cumbersome for Nigerians to adapt to this multi-purpose card? Okay. Tell us.
Okay, I would just like to explain a little bit and also make us understand. We have a general multipurpose card, and what my DG has done when she came on board and in line with the renewed hope agenda of the president is to look at what we had before and what were the mistakes or what were the challenges that we didn't address before. So we looked at the card. If you look at most Nigerians, it's because we are in the city here. It's easy for somebody to stop you on the road and you just flash out, you say, I'm Amina Mohammed, and he says, prove your identity. You bring out your driver's license, you bring out your international pass or something else that you have in your bag. But when we go into the hinterlands, these are people that have never had access to banking. They've never been to school. Some of them don't even have birth certificate. They don't even have anything to prove that this is who I am. And these people have somehow, because of these challenges, been excluded from maybe some benefits. Most of them are vulnerable. They can barely eat or feed. So what we've done with this new general multipurpose card is to look at how can we come in? How can we help the government? We heard of instances before where government is distributing palliatives. You don't know who gets what. They are not able to identify. You can't trace. There are challenges of transparency, accountability, and all that. So we've come up with a card. The card is, they are all the cards we have 2 programs, and they are all the general multipurpose card. It's not different. You can't have a general G2P and then they are all the same. But what we are doing with the G2P is to ensure that these G2P cards are program-based. So maybe Ministry of Agriculture has palliatives and programs that they want to give out to citizens. So this card is issued and is used. It has multiple wallets. So each of these wallets is assigned to maybe a particular agency or a particular program which citizens can benefit from. The major focus right now is on the vulnerable and the excluded from the society. A lot of people, we've seen...
How do you want to get them to register for the G2P cards, the vulnerable that you're talking about?
That is why I said it is program-based. So maybe now, like he said, we already have something ongoing with Ministry of Agriculture. And Ministry of Agriculture wants to issue these cards to 2 million farmers. They have identified where the farmers are. So NIMC is going to work with them. They are going to create a farmers registry using the NIN as the foundation. So for those that already have the NIN, Ministry of Agriculture will build on it by asking them, where is your farm? What is the size of your farm? What crops do you deal in? So they are able to build a registry and know these farmers and what they do. For those that don't already have a NIN, they will be registered. So when they are registered and they are already in the farmers registry, they will be issued these cards. Ministry of Agriculture is starting with 3 programs. The first is farmer financing. They are also doing input distribution, giving them crops, fertilizers, and all that. And then they're also giving extension services to these farmers. So what happens is maybe like fertilizers now, you get maybe like your wallet in the card. Maybe a particular farmer is assigned maybe 20 bags of fertilizer. He goes with this card to the maybe distributor or the vendor. We've had instances in the past where vendors sell these subsidies and all that in the open market. So what you do is you go there, present your card. Maybe you want to take 10 bags of fertilizers, you take 10 bags of fertilizers. Government is able to trace who you issue that fertilizer to, how many you take at each point in time. And then Ministry of Agriculture can even go to your farms to see that you have actually used these resources that governments are investing in the lives of citizens and that there are results for it.
All right, I think I'll pause you. But you see, the question of how you want to get these vulnerable people to get the G2P card still remains a question. How much of information, how much of awareness, how much of education about these cards, is currently ongoing at the moment? Those who need this G2P, who need government incentives, are they aware? Because, but anyways, we'll get into all of that. But let's get to Lagos. I'd like to speak with Bolale Enigbokan, Head Enterprise Support Services, Nigeria Interbank Settlement System. I think I understand that your organization will be in charge of producing this card. Speak to us about, what makes this card unique, why it is a good deal for Nigerians.
Very much. I think my colleagues over there in your studio in Abuja, they've actually done a very good job. First of all, this is a very unique card in the sense that it is first an identity card, right, with evidential evidence, right, to prove that, number one, that you're a Nigerian, and of course you're a legal resident in the country. Then secondly, it is layered with payment capabilities. What you will call a two-in-one card. First of all, as an ID card, then supported by payment capabilities, which means that you can use your card, aside from being an ID card, to also do transactions on the acceptance channels that we have, which is typically the POS, the ATM, and the web channels in Nigeria. So that makes it very unique because oftentimes most of the ID cards that you see, national ID cards that you see in other clients, just serve the purpose of identity. But this time around, it's a combination of both identity and payment, with, of course, the security features all layered onto it. And I think that that's the unique thing that is really being, talked about with respect to this card.
Enigbokan, I'd like to stay with you, because you talked about the payment capabilities. Speak to us about how, I mean, someone can have 3 bank accounts. How do you want to link all these accounts? Because, I mean, if you use 3 banks, you have 3 ATM cards. So how do you want to link all your accounts to this card? That's one. Then 2, why is this card different from the previous card? I'm asking that because I remember at the time that card was produced with the chip, we were told that, eventually it will be linked with our accounts and all of that. So why are we discarding that and, coming up with something new that, of course, would lead to, more expenses and, so much cost on the Nigerian people?
Very much. I think you hit the very important point, which is cost. Right? How do we optimize costs and make it affordable for Nigerians? And the idea of the card is really to unify all information in one place. Remember that my colleagues over there have talked about the importance of NIN. If you look at what the central bank has done with the guidelines that have been released now, it shows that it is important that for every Nigerian that is opening an account in a bank must have a NIN or a BVN. Right, but NIN itself is the foundational ID, and then every other functional ID can be added to it. So in essence, your NIN actually unifies everything together. So which means that all your biodata are already available on your NIN. So rather than having multiple cards in different places, one single card can be issued, leveraging the biodata information that is available on that NIN, right? And then, of course, it's layered on payment. Remember that in this partnership that is being coordinated by NIMC and the CBN, we have the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System and Afrigo, which is the payment card scheme, right? Which, of course, will enable that card to be able to deliver payment capabilities. So which means that since all your information are already in one place in your biodata, and then there's a payment scheme that is providing the payment capabilities, everything can be in one place. And once you have that card issued, you don't need to be going from one bank to the other to be looking for different cards. I think that's the uniqueness of this card. Then again, like I mentioned earlier, why this is different is that for the first time, we are unifying all the accounts in one place. We are issuing one card that has that capability to identify you as a bona fide citizen of the country or a legal resident. At the same time, you're able to do all your payment transactions from one place without having to go from one means of payment or the other. So I think these are the unique features that this card brings about, making it very different from whatever it is that we've had before now. Thank you.
Mr. Bolanle, let's go to Mr. Ugo Obasi, Africa Pay Financial Service Limited. Financial security is at the top, of every, every other person who wants to secure his financial and keep it within, their space. And how will this card now protect people with multiple bank accounts? Because we know the ATM expires. The ATMs we use, to transact our business expires maybe after 2-3 years. So how can, these bank accounts that are inculcated into this multi-purpose card, will it expire or will it be the same throughout until maybe the person dies or the person, can you stop using an account? Can you just go ahead and do transactions? We all know how the technicalities of all these things happens and the frustrations that Nigerians go through, bank transactions. So how can we protect Nigerians and their financial security with this multipurpose card?
Very good question. And let me attempt to answer it this way. You had previously asked the difference between what we had before and what we are currently having. You would agree with me that before, we didn't have a national domestic card scheme that was layering payments on the cards that we had before. What it meant was that we were actually working with individual companies that could, you wouldn't be able to guarantee your data sovereignty as a country because you're talking about security features of a national identity card. But today, the collaboration between NIMC, NIBS, and Afrigo clearly shows that this is a particular collaboration that recognizes all the factors for a sovereign nation. Then in terms of your question about, validity of card, I think those ones are simply things that you can actually set up on CMSs. Today, we advise that those cards are going to be 5-year validity. And then because a couple of things may have happened even in the life of a citizen that needs to be updated while you go to renew your cards and all of that. So in terms of security of the card, we are actually using the best global standards to produce the cards that we're going to be giving to Nigerians. This will be EMVCO compliant. EMVCO, it's a global body that regulates every chip and PIN card across the world. Today, the card is EMVCO compliant. The second one is what we call the PCI DSS, which is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, which is really a global standard that tries to ensure that every card issued complies with that security standard. Today, that card is equally compliant with PCI DSS. And therefore, this is a promise to Nigerians that what they're going to have is something homegrown, but of global and international standards. Thank you.
Mr. Abasi, homegrown, international standard, fantastic point. Let's get back here in the studio. Dr. Alvan Nikoko. The validity period is 5 years, as stated by Mr. Abasi. How much, someone already mentioned that Nigerians will have to pay for this card. To speak to us about what the cost is and if registration is continuous. I'm worried about the registration for this card because I remember there was a time there was chaos in terms when people were trying to get their names. I think when banks said you needed to harmonize something with names and all, and when JAM students needed to use it, I mean, there was just so much chaos in the country trying to get name. Tell us about these cards. Is it a continuous process? Can you register anytime at your convenience? And then you talked about government incentives. So I'm thinking, say government is giving out fertilizer, I'm interested, I don't have the card. Can I just walk into an NIMC office and get it? Or there's a condition, a politician needs to sign or give my name to somebody. Just let us know how to get this card.
All right, thank you so very much. Let me also put it this way. My colleague, I'm trying to reiterate, my colleague had told us earlier that it is program-driven. The second flavor of it is program-driven. And what that means is every single sector in the country is welcome, and the regulatory agency, maybe it might be the ministry, it might be a department or agency or whatever, can come in and collaborate with NIMC. And as far as they are concerned, whether it is health, whether it's agriculture, can actually issue this card to citizens and legal residents who are needy for the card. Okay? And it's issued, if an agency issues it, another agency does not need to. Okay? There would be that collaboration, or what in technical terms we call interoperability across MDAs. So that immediately caters for it. So I can require it for health purposes and at the same time for agricultural incentive purposes. So whichever I sign on to first, that is what it will bear on the card. So it could bear Ministry of Agriculture on the card, but nevertheless, if I also require, health intervention or to be on a health scheme, fine and good. I'll be on a health scheme, and in any case, the regulatory agency for the health scheme would know of necessity that I already have such a card. They will know through NIMC, because obviously NIMC would know who has the card and who doesn't have the card. So I don't think that really arises, any misgiving arises in the first place. Nigerians need not be concerned, okay, need not be bothered as such. Reason, we are on national television, and I don't know if it's still the motto of the NTA. Once it was, you can't beat the rich. So we are reaching the people.
Of course, you can't beat the rich.
Oh, sure, we'll step up our game above and beyond NTA. We'll reach out to Nigerians how best we possibly can. There's the NOA. It will get to the last mile, and every individual, every citizen, especially those who seem not to be in the loop of things in terms of benefit from government incentive or completely financially unbanked, would have an opportunity and the privilege of getting onto the scheme. And more importantly, it helps the government, the federal government, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to reach, you see, one distinguishing factor, and I don't want to sound political in any way, I would want to believe that previous governments have made attempts, okay, at reaching Nigerians, at alleviating poverty in the country, but have not been as successful. So this has taken into consideration all of those challenges or outrightly failings of those governments, and is now trying to address the issue of accountability, more or less, that has bedeviled us in times past. So
I wouldn't want to say accountability. I would rather say implementation. Because I know the reason why my colleague Henry asked you that question, because of the cumbersome nature of things when they say, well, you need to do this. How easy is it going to be for you to just walk into a NIMC office and get this multipurpose card? Because we know a lot of manpower hours have been lost, lining up, Nigerians lining up from 5 a.m. till 6 p.m. and at times they don't get these things. How easy is it going to be for Nigerians to have access to this multipurpose card? That is what I think that's what Henry is trying to ask.
It wouldn't be just NIMC, okay? There are multiple stakeholders, okay? The Ministry of Agriculture, which is spread across the country, would have offices where this can be gotten. You can get it in banks. I mean...
you keep mentioning the President Tinubu-led administration. So I'm thinking, if government changes, will this card still be effective?
Government is a continuum. Government is a continuum and is expected to be a continuum.
Okay, Mr. Manasseh, just explain it to us how, Nigerian can access, this card and the application method.
Process.
Yes.
Okay, basically, the cards are issued to Nigerians that have come into the National Identity Database. That means you have registered and you have a NIN, and your NIN is verifiable. So what you do, we have various ways which you can apply for the card. We have an online portal that is going to come on board. It's going to become, as soon as the card is launched, it's going to be rolled. So you can just, from the comfort of your home, from your phone, you can sit down and apply for this card. You can walk into any bank. We are partnering with banks, just like he said. So NIBS is on board. So you can walk into any of the partner banks and request for this card. You can also go, subsequently, we're also hoping to have maybe like authorized agents that will be able to issue this card. So we're trying to make it as seamless as possible.
How much I said earlier, to get the card?
Cost?
To be honest, as at now, we don't have a particular, the cost has not been determined, or we are working towards ensuring that we keep the cost as minimal as possible. We all actually understand how the country is, and it's something that we expect every Nigerian to have. So we are looking at keeping it to the barest minimum. So as soon as we launch, you definitely get the
We
cost
ask this
of the
because
card.
I know you're targeting the vulnerable. Some people can't even afford a square meal every day. So how can they afford to pay? Are the vulnerable getting it for free?
Like he said, the G2P card is program-based. So what it means is that each of these programs, these people will come up with the names of the people that they want to give this incentive
So
to.
how do you verify these
the
names?
ones.
How do you, that's what I was asking. You talked about vulnerable Nigerians. I mean, how do you verify that these people are vulnerable? If you say an organization will come up and bring names and say these are people to benefit from a government incentive, I mean, names can be manufactured from anywhere. So how do you verify that these people need such incentive so that NIMC is doing the needful in getting the right people registered under this program to benefit from these government incentives?
Each government agency has its program. If you look at the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, they have things like conditional cash transfer. We heard of things like trader money. They do their own homework and come up with their list. There's a National Social Register which captures the vulnerable and all that. So basically, because of that, like I said, we are working with Agric. Agric already has a database of, somehow knows who these farmers are. So what they are doing now is to build a registry. They go and verify, they know these people. So we use the name as the foundational identity. Every other thing rests on the name. So if you are a farmer and you have a name, the Ministry of Agriculture can go a step further and maybe add other things that he wants to add. He wants to know where your farm is located. He wants to know what the size of your farm is, what are the crops you deal in. So the name is the foundational identity. And as we know, the name is issued to somebody who is existing, who you can verify and say this person is actually existing.
So in the first instance, if you don't have a name, you can't partake in this scheme?
You can partake because you'll be registered to have a name. If you don't have a name and you are part of the project, you'll be issued a name because we'll register you. And then you get a name and then you become part of the process.
You are the Assistant Director, Card Management Services.
Yes, please.
How do you identify Nigerians and
non-Nigerians?
Yes. How do you identify? How do we begin to identify? Because, you know, we have a porous border. You know, people come into Nigeria and before you know they are Nigerians, they have NIN and all. How do you begin to separate and identify Nigerians with non-Nigerians?
Okay,
how is that possible? Because even the National Register you've been talking, even the National Register we've been talking about has issues.
I will gladly take that question.
Yes, the National Register has issues too. So how are we going to perfect this one so that we don't have issues? People's life depends on it.
First and foremost, we don't need to be pessimists, okay? For once, let's be optimistic.
No, we're not being pessimists because Nigerians are watching, they want to learn.
What we recognize is that we have been at this experimentation for quite some time. So, fine and good, we have experimented enough. Can we make an improvement based on the experiments that we've conducted in times past? That's simply what we're saying. Now, the Ministry of, the National Identity Management Commission is under the supervision of the Ministry of Interior at the moment. And the Ministry of Interior has other departments and agencies that it supervises, including, of course, the Nigerian Immigration Service. The Nigerian Immigration Service is charged with the responsibility of determining citizenship, okay, in Nigeria. So, fine and good. If you say you have a porous border, maybe it's just about time. You extended an invitation to the National Immigration Service, to Nigerian Immigration Service, to come explain the porous nature of our borders. But for us, we collaborate with them even at those borders. And so, if there is an individual who is crossing the border for the purpose of getting a national identification number, because of our collaboration with the NIS, we can identify those individuals. In any case, it is not a death sentence to be a foreign national and residing in Nigeria, provided you're a legal resident. We bring you on board. The most important thing is identification, because if we identify every single individual in Nigerian soil, all the better for us. Remember, there will be a security implication in identifying every single individual in Nigerian soil. So the benefits are enormous.
Dr. Alvan,
Yes,
no one has been pessimistic about this scheme. You know, we've had other schemes in the past. I mean, you have also said it. There were experiments. We're just trying to make sure this is also not another experiment. I mean, because it will be experiment too much, or I don't know. But let's get to Mr. Obolande Enigbokom now. Mr. Obolande, you are from the NIBSS, and my colleague already asked about protection of funds in these cards. I'm asking the security features, that will prevent cloning. A situation where, someone can take my card, get the card cloned and be able to use it to do whatever. Tell us.
Even hackers.
I mean, so many questions, but just tell us why Nigerians should feel safe about this, and also speak to us. I don't think you talked about how you can harmonize all your accounts, in this. Say you have, I don't want to mention names of banks, but I'm sure Nigerians know all the different banks, and so many people use more than one. So how do I harmonize? Can I harmonize all my accounts, or is it that if I go to a particular bank to get this card, it's only that bank that is connected with that card? Make that a little bit clear.
Thank you very much. Very valid questions that you've raised. I think the first part is the issue of security, right? And I would like to address it from both cyber security as well as physical security. For the cyber security, like Mr. Obasi mentioned earlier, we have adopted international best practices, right, to ensure that the cards are very safe. First of all, remember that we are talking about data sovereignty here, data autonomy, which means that the data that is being that the card will be issued on is residing in Nigeria, which means that it's within our sovereignty, it's within our control as a country. So we can manage it better. Then secondly, the issue of applying those best international practices to safeguard the card are also in place. We've earlier talked about the EMVCO compliance standards. We've talked about the PCI DSS, which is the Payments Card Industry Data Security Standard, which is a global best security standard, is also going to be applicable here. Then again, it's NDPR compliant, which is Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, also compliant. And again, the chip element of it also has its own security features. Don't forget again, before you can use the card, you also need to authenticate with your PIN that is known to you, as well as the other biometric features, which can also help you to validate and authenticate on the card. A lot of things that we have put in place, in addition to the things I mentioned, to make sure that the card is very safe and secure. It's not going to be different from how we issue the cards today, but just that we've added more protection layers to ensure that it's very safe. And of course, in the card issuance process, the lady from NIMC has also mentioned that you can issue through 3 designated channels for control purposes. It can be through the online portal of NIMC. It can be through the bank channels, including bank branches today, to ensure that when you come for issuance, we can verify that you are the owner of that information, talk less of even issuing the card. We'll first verify that you are first the owner of that information with your name, and then the bank or through his channels can now proceed to issue a card for you. And the third part of it is that we'll be leveraging the agents who are also very much trained to ensure that proper validation and verification is done before the card is issued. The second question talks about harmonizing. Don't forget that today we have the name. Like it was also mentioned earlier, your name is your foundational ID, which means that it's the foundation for all kinds of identity that you have today. And it is the name information that will be used to issue this card. So what it means is that when you go to a bank and you want to issue the general multipurpose card, the bank issues you, attaches all your information to that card, and therefore you cannot go to another bank to issue that card again. So it is tied. That's for phase 1. But for phase 2, what we are trying to do is to make sure that all your accounts can also be in one place. So part of the journey for this card is that, number one, you go to a bank issues you, and you're locked down to that bank. But again, you are carrying a national ID with payment capabilities. And the second phase of it is that eventually you're able to access all your account from one place, and you can able to transact and choose any of your bank account at the point of transaction. And of course, that speaks to your concern around how do we manage costs. So that rather than issuing 4 or 5 different bank cards, you just have one card that will have all your accounts, and then you can transact from any of them going forward. I think that's the eventual end state that we would try to achieve with the card. Thank you.
Understand, you say if you go to a particular bank and register, you are now attached to that bank. When you collect your card, do you go to your other banks where you have accounts for them to add to it? Can you please explain it?
All right, so like I mentioned earlier, I said the first phase, right, is that you will go to just one, like I mentioned, 3 different ways in which you can get the card issued. The bank channel is just one of it, right? So if you go to a bank to issue your card, you are issued the national ID card with the payment capabilities. You do not need to go to any other bank to issue another national ID. Again, for sake of emphasis, you can't even issue another national ID from any other bank, right? That is for phase 1. But ultimately, where we want to get to is that eventually at some point, you'll be able to have all your bank accounts on one card. That is not in phase 1 now, but eventually we are going to do that. And you don't need to go to your banks to do that. Remember that you have your NIN, just like the same way you have your BVN, where all your accounts are linked to it. So when we get to that implementation in the phase 2 of it, it will be done automatically, and you don't need to visit any of your banks for that purpose. But for phase 1, it will be you going to one bank, the card will be issued, and then you can't issue it from any other bank. Simply also the same way you go to an agent, possibly to issue the card, or you go to NIMC's online portal. It's just one of these designated channels that you can leverage for the card issuance. I hope that is helpful.
We're beginning to understand it. Let's bring Mr. Ugobasi into this conversation now. You know, bank transaction and all that. Let's talk about international travels and identification. When you travel outside the country, can you use that card to withdraw money from because we have some Nigerian banks across the world, like UBA, Zenith Bank and all that. Can you use that card to withdraw money in that country's currency? Can you do that?
So, just to answer very correctly as of today, I would say no. But is it part of the journey? I'll say yes. Today, what we have built that is ready is for domestic transactions. But eventual journey is to have those cards able to transact across the world. So we have started some work, some projects around that already, which haven't migrated to live environment yet. But eventually, that's the ultimate goal. But as of today, the card that will be launched very soon, it's the card that will be used across all acceptance touch points within Nigerian space, with the eventual goal of going international in very due course.
Thanks, Mr. Obasi, for your response to that question. I think it's time to call for a break now. Let's take this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. Many thanks for leaving it locked. Still good morning, Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And our guest, still very much, is also talking about the NIMC Multipurpose card. And of course, continuing our conversation, I'd like to get to Dr. Alvan Ikoku, and my next thoughts, after all that you have said and told us about this card is it compulsory, for every Nigerian to have this card? And then when should Nigerians expect it to be rolled out? speak to us about this.
All right. It's not compulsory. Nigerians would have to make a request for the card. So that gives them the option of not carrying it.
So does that mean if I have my name slip, I can continue to use my name slip and decide not to get a multipurpose card?
Yeah, if that's what you want, fine. But when you begin to see the benefits of having a national general multipurpose card that you have not keyed into, I'm sure you'll definitely want to go get one. So to that, it's not compulsory.
So you mean it's optional? You can decide not to have it for the rest of your life.
If that's how Nigerians want to go about it, that's fine. But the benefits would far outweigh not keeping yourself out of that loop. So it's a means of identification, and all Nigerians are expected to be identified. So imagine.
But we already have the NIN, which is identification. Yeah. So this is just a card. So I mean, that's why I'm asking if it's compulsory.
The word compulsory, no, we would not use it. But Nigerians should endeavor to have their identity card.
When would it be rolled out?
I can't speak to that at the moment, but we are inching closer with each passing day.
Is that something?
And of course, we are good to go with the program-driven flavor of government to people.
Talk to us about funding. How is it going to be funded?
Funding.
To cover 250 million Nigerians if they decide to have, every Nigerian decides to have this multipurpose card.
All right, so the bulk of Nigerians who will probably take advantage of it under the G2P program would definitely receive it from the agency that they are signing up to. There is a strong possibility that because of the vulnerable nature of those individuals who would definitely benefit from the G2P, that their programs may want to defray the cost, if there be any, to them. Okay? Imagine the poorest of the poor who also, who would depend on palliative, more or less, to survive. If they can't even get it by themselves, the ministry, department, and agency charged with that responsibility in updating the national social register may want to defray the cost, provided we are sure that that individual has been uniquely identified. That's what matters. And it's going to meet some other needs of government. So the onus will not necessarily be on NIMC to do that, but on the individual and the program. So the MDAs know how best they've set up the program. The most important thing is that the program touches the lives that it is intended to touch.
If it's lost, destroyed, by any circumstance, what happens?
You apply for a replacement.
Okay. Ms. Omanese, let's talk about, printing of like NIN in business centers, a NIN card in business centers, I'm sure it's a cause for concern, actually. Yes, so how will this new multipurpose, what are the features that will prevent this from happening to the multipurpose card? And if a place is caught to be doing that are not authorized, what are the penalties? Let's get it.
Okay, I think these issues have been addressed several times, and NIMC has actually taken its time. We've done a lot of sensitizations, done a lot of campaigns. We've been to press houses and also programs like this to let Nigerians understand that it is only NIMC who issues the national ID card. No business center has the right to print on a plastic and present it as if it's the authentic document. It's a criminal act. It's not something that is supposed to be done. You see a lot of Nigerians, they are always so quick to flash out. By the time you look at it, it doesn't even have a chip. Our national ID card has a chip, which you can use as a verifiable means of identity to check the person. Maybe if he presents his fingerprint, is it the right person? Is it the same person? So we've had this business centers come up and then start doing things that they are not authorized to do. And it's become a concern, and NIMC has actually taken its time to go to the press to advise Nigerians and also educate them that what they are carrying is not the authentic general multipurpose card. It is something that business centers have just been using to, I want to use the term, maybe extort Nigerians. I've seen someone who said he paid 5,000 for it. It's wrong. That's actually how much people pay to get the normal, national ID card. Why should a business center print on a plastic and present it as if it's the authentic document?
Right.
So those are the challenges that we have with Nigerians.
So what should be the penalty if that is done with the multipurpose card? Because your account is there, everything about you, your whole life is in that card.
Yes.
What happens? What are the penalties if people are caught printing these cards?
We have an inspectorate and enforcement unit that have been doing their job and going around to ensure when these people are caught, they are handed over to the law. The law takes its course on them, and they face whatever penalties that are there or stipulated in the Constitution or wherever that, or the acts or whatever that binds it. Most times the audacity of some of these people is because you keep trying to educate Nigerians, but I don't know, maybe the benefits that they get, I don't know, it's so lucrative that they are willing to sacrifice and damn all consequences, because it's something that we've been doing. Some of them have been caught and handed over to the law, and we'll still keep doing that. We are working around the clock to ensure that the national ID is a document that belongs to the government. It's a government property. So you can't just go and sit down and then start printing it and issuing it to people when you are not authorized to do that. So it should serve as a warning to everybody. NIMC is not resting on its oars. We are actually going around ensuring that these people are caught and brought to books.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Mandise Adofu. I'd like to get to Dr. Alvan Ikoku, and I'd like to commend NIMC. Just last week, I walked into NHIS office to get my young child, just about a year, registered in NHIS, and I was told that I need to get the child registered with NIMC. He needs to have a NIM before he can be registered with NHIS, and I felt that was good. But you see, going forward, you already said too many experiments in the past, and this should be like, stabilization for us in terms of identification. Is there a possibility that this card would, in the nearest future, be a one-stop shop for everything a Nigerian wants to do? I'm talking about for voters in election. I'm talking about tax. Of course, the health insurance has been incorporated now, travel, enrollment. I want to apply for a job or anything. Is there a possibility that this card would just be the unifier for everything you want to do in Nigeria in the nearest future?
That is the intent. And as steadily as we're moving, we would get there. That's the intent. We would not foist it on any agency. Once they determine their level of readiness, I'm sure they will come on board, especially when they survey and see that the benefits far outweighs whatever cons there may be. They'll come on board. In any case, I need to remind us that there is a subsisting presidential directive on the mandatory use of NIM. So as agencies comply to that directive, they will definitely come on board and take up these opportunities, as it were.
Okay, let's quickly go to Lagos, and if Bolale is there, let's talk about, the financial benefits the government expects from this widespread adoption of NIMC card for citizen identification, and what is there a cost when you do financial transaction with this multipurpose card?
When we talk about financial benefits, right, and there are a lot of benefits that will come to not just government, but also to the citizens, right? For government alone, first of all, it helps to ensure that people's information are all in one place, right? Because you talked about the issue of taxes, the levies, and all that. So when everyone is within that bracket, right, government is able to envisage what can come in terms of revenue, for example, taxes and other forms of revenue channels that can come to government. Then for the citizens, like what Dr. Ikoku said earlier, right, you can enjoy a lot of social intervention, grants, palliatives, and other government benefits that can come your way, because the government can duly identify you as a citizen. And of course, if you are vulnerable and the data within that space shows that you are vulnerable in partnership with other agencies of government, then of course you can enjoy all benefits that are craved to such people in that category. Now, in terms of transactions, remember that I mentioned earlier that because you are consolidating all your activities in one place, so it makes it cheaper for you to be able to transact. So for your funds management, it's easier for you because you are not jumping from one place to the other. Then in terms of financial transaction, you are just able to consummate them using one card rather than paying multiple fees. But most importantly, again, because this is leveraging the national domestic card scheme. Now, one of the things that the Central Bank of Nigeria is really driving to improve financial inclusion is to make cost of card services very cheap and affordable to Nigerians. So the key value proposition of even Afrigo as a national domestic card scheme that the NIMC General Multipurpose Card is going to leverage is to make sure that financial transactions are a lot more affordable for Nigerians. So that's a core value proposition that the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria are really driving to make sure that financial transactions that you do through this card are a lot more affordable. They are cheaper than the existing alternatives that you have today, in addition to the other benefits that Nigerians are going to enjoy. I just thought to mention that. Thank you.
Mr. Enigbo, let's get to Mr. Obasi now as we round off the conversation. Of course, so many benefits have been mentioned, but let us know if there will be a reduction in fraud and if this will increase financial transparency, in any way. Mr. Obasi, are you there? All right. Let's get back here. I'm sure that Dr. Alvan Ikoku has the answer to that question. Would this in any way reduce fraud and improve financial transparency?
Yes, it will.
In what way?
He already talked about, our colleagues in Lagos already talked about all of the security features around the card. and so even if there will be no spoofing, would there be attempts? Most certainly. Nigerians are very creative. They want to try things out, but I can assure you that they won't be successful at it. So I think our minds need to be at rest, that it will be safe and it would reduce costs of doing business.
So how will this enhance? Let's not go into politics. You say you don't want to go into politics, actually, but there's no way we can function in this country without politics. Okay. So how can this enhance the process of voter registration and, during the election period? Okay. Can you just go use it to vote? With your voter card, identification be on the multipurpose card too?
With what we've done so far, the answer is yes. You can. We can. But nevertheless, we are not the agency charged with the responsibility of administering election or electoral matters. That resides with INEC. Let me also state that in anticipation of what you just said, the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters have actually invited the NIMC and INEC under the same roof to have this discussion. The best I can say is not in my place, is that discussion went well. Okay? I can't begin to put a timeline to that. Like we said, it is program driven. So if we get to such a program that is driven by an agency like INEC or NHIS or Federal Ministry of Agriculture, whatever sector of the economy that wants to leverage on this, they are welcome to. I would hope that the agencies come very willingly and not being expressly directed by the presidency. So the opportunities are there. Our business, our core mandate is identity. And we will keep improving at doing what we're about, that is identity management. And every other MDA can leverage on that. By the way, at the NIMC, what I also, part of my responsibility is to coordinate harmonization and integration, okay? So we have since reached out to 106 agencies, including state governments, okay? And the discussion is ongoing. All of them are different levels of discussion with NIMC. So imagine them all coming on board to harmonize with NIMC. This would also be available for them. So there can be harmonization at the card level as well. So.
All right, as we round up the conversation, Manisa Obaje Adofo, I'd like you to tell us if there's anything we've left out about this card, something that you know, that we should know about this card.
Yes, I would like to add that I would like to talk about some of the features of this card, because you kept asking what is different and what is new. This card has offline capabilities. Like I said, we have looked at some of the gaps we had before. And so with this card, you can carry out your transactions even in places that have limited network connectivity. So people that are in the rural areas and places that have poor network connectivity can still do their transactions, which can be settled later. So that's one of the benefits of this card. Also, this card has the capability to support digital tokens, virtual wallets. We're also hoping to integrate the e-Naira into it. So those are the benefits that Nigerians will get from getting the general multipurpose card. The card is also interoperable. You can use it across automated teller machines. You can use it across POSs. You can use it for online merchandising and all. So there are a lot of benefits. You have an evidential means of identifying yourself. There's biometric authentication. You can use your fingerprints. You are stopped on the road, you say your name is Fatima Aliu. There are thousands of Fatima Aliu around. But by the time you do a fingerprint authentication, it actually shows that you are who you are. So those are some of the benefits of the card. So we just want to encourage Nigerians. We know there are so many challenges, and maybe based on past things that have occurred. But like I said before, we looked at what we were doing before. We looked at the gaps, and we have worked to improve on what we had before. So please, we are expecting Nigerians to come on board as soon as we launch and roll out. We are hoping that this will actually help to address so many of the challenges that we have with security, with giving incentives to Nigerians and all that.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I just hope enlightenment doesn't end with you know, this particular program,
certainly.
because I mean, there's some people, you know, electricity is an issue, and you know, you cannot watch TV without electricity. So how do you intend to reach those vulnerable people that you say need a G2P card?
We'll listen more to radio, actually. Because in the farms, they put the radio and they just farm and listen to radio. So how are you going to reach out to them? Because this is the beginning of the awareness now. So how far are you ready to go to make sure that every Nigerian knows about this multipurpose? Because since the talk begin, it's all over the social media, it's all over the media space. So how are you going to, what mode of enlightenment are you going to use for the most vulnerable that this card is supposed to target?
Like I said, it's program driven. So most of these agencies are already working with most of these vulnerable people. So they know where they are. Also, if you've seen lately, I'm sure you've been watching TV, we've been partnering with the National Orientation Agency, and they've been rolling out a lot of jingles and all that. We also work with TV stations. Our communications department is working round the clock, online, everywhere, on radios and TVs. We've been doing a lot of campaigns. So we know, and we're hoping that when these cards roll out, we'll be able to, people at least get to the hinterlands and reach everybody to know of the benefits that these cards will give to them.
What about hard to reach areas, like, you know, places bedeviled by insurgency, banditry and all that? How do you get to them?
Like I said, I hope you know that NIMC has offices in all the local governments of Nigeria. NOA is spread around the country. We are also working on programmed, like I said, program driven. So most of these things, like humanitarians, they have officers in the hinterlands addressing some of these challenges. So we are using them. They are also advocating for us. In fact, some of the places that these farmers are for this farmers project, they are in the hinterlands. So some of them will be reached. People are going to go to them to register them, to tell them of the benefits, and they will come on board. So it's a collective effort, and I just want to appeal to all Nigerians and everybody. We are all, it's a national project. It's not just for NIMC alone. This is a national project. So we are appealing to everybody to come on board. We are working assiduously and working with everybody to ensure that this project succeeds. My DG has not rested. My director, they've been working around the clock. So we are also seeking support.
You have also not rested. You are here working around the clock.
Bolanle and Nick will come, Mr. Ugo Obasi. I don't know if we can spare 30 seconds to hear your final thoughts on this as we round up the conversation. All right, Bolanle, your final words as we say our goodbyes.
Very much. I think a lot has been said, but just to reemphasize that this is a very good opportunity for Nigerians. We are having the convergence of identity and payment in one place with a lot of exciting features that will be on the card. One particular thing I want to add to what Omanze has said is that on this card, if you use it for payment and for transactions and merchant places, you are going to enjoy instant settlement. This is the first in the course of card history in Nigeria, which means that merchants are going to get value for their transactions instantly when these cards are used on that channel. That's in addition to other exciting features like the QR code that Omanze mentioned and other security features that we put in place. And again, the card is going to be available in debit and prepaid forms. And eventually, at some point, we're also going to have the virtual card option of it. So I look forward to Nigerians getting these cards from those designated channels that we've talked about, and of course, enjoying the benefits that will come along with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bolanle and welcome. Of course, so many positives. We hope that it translates, to that by the time the cards are rolled out. Many thanks, Dr. Alvan.
So we should take Obasi. We should take.
Okay, Mr. Obasi.
For his final thoughts. Okay.
To what we have.
So many positives. We hope that it translates, to that by the time the cards are rolled out. Many thanks, Dr. Alvan.
So we should take Obasi. We should take.
Okay, Mr. Obasi.
For his final thoughts.
To that. So I said my final assurance to Nigerians will be to understand that the card we are rolling out is going to be very secured. And this is because this is biometric authentication. The best form of authentication around the world is what you are. Nobody can replicate. Somebody can play around with OTPs. Somebody can play around with your PIN if they steal it. But nobody can steal your date, your who you are. So today, payments has evolved from what you have to who you are. And that's what Afrigo promises to Nigerians regarding the General Multipurpose Card from NIMC. Thank you very much.
Mr. Obasi, for those words would hold you to account in the coming days and months as the cards are rolled out and we see it play out the way you have said. Many thanks, Mr. Ugo Obasi, Chief Operating Officer, Afrigo Pay Financial Services Limited, who joined us all the way from Lagos. We appreciate you. Of course, Bolanle Enigbokom, Head Enterprise Support Services, Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. Many thanks for also being our guest. We appreciate you. Right here in the studio, we want to thank Omanise Obaje Adufu, Assistant Director, Card Management Services. Thank you so much, and we hope that we'll see the cards like you have, painted it to be. And yes, Dr. Alvan Ikoku, Head Strategy and Program Office, NIMC. Many thanks for being our guest. This name.
Thank you for having us.
This name is beautiful, by the way. The tenor notes is not very visible anymore. So
yes. So, thank you, gentlemen and lady. You sort of balance the equation today. Yeah. 3 ladies, 3 girls. So thank you very much, Nigerians, for listening. I hope you've been educated on the NIMC and multipurpose card. I am Jumo Yusuf.
And I'm Anne Ray John. Remain tuned to the NTA.